Your Excellency, President of the Republic of North Macedonia, Gordana Siljanovska-Davkova, and all attendees of the event, honorable members of the government, deputies of the Assembly of the Republic of North Macedonia, representatives of ministries, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, representatives of the diplomatic corps, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen. At the beginning of our commemorative event, we will listen to the national anthems of North Macedonia, Ukraine, and the European Union. Thank you. Today, we have gathered here to remind ourselves and the world that in the very heart of Europe, a bloody and cruel, unprovoked war of the nuclear-armed Russian Federation against Ukraine has been going on for exactly 3 years. Since February 24th, 2022, Russian armed forces have waged a treacherous war on the sovereign territory of Ukraine, destroying peaceful towns and villages, killing thousands of civilians, including children, and looting homes abandoned by fleeing Ukrainians. In the first 1,000 days of war, Russian forces have destroyed or damaged 236,000 residential buildings, over 4,000 educational institutions, 1,554 medical facilities, 3,921 cultural sites, 399 religious buildings, 343 sports complexes, more than 26,000 kilometers of roads, 260,000 vehicles, 130,000 units of agricultural machinery, 4 million tons of grain storage, 16,000 hectares of perennial crops, and 298 hectares of forests. But the greatest loss is human lives. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians have perished in the flames of war. I now ask you to honor the memory of the fallen defenders of Ukraine and all innocent victims of this war with a moment of silence.
a full-scale invasion. Putin called it a special military operation. Missile strikes hit dozens of cities, but the government remained in Kiev. This proved Ukraine's institutional stability and the strength of its democracy. In those difficult days, Ukraine showed the world that its independence was not a historical accident. Russian imperialism crashed against Ukrainians' aspirations for independence. By early March, the occupiers had captured parts of Sumy, Chernihiv, Kyiv, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Kharkiv regions. Kherson, Melitopol, Berdyansk were captured, and Mariupol was surrounded. Kyiv withstood. Soon, Ukraine began to regain its territory. When the Ukrainian armed forces liberated Kyiv Oblast, the world witnessed the atrocities in Bucha. The cruiser Moskva sank. In the summer, Snake Island was liberated, and Ukraine launched a counteroffensive in September. At that time, a significant part of the Kharkiv region was liberated, along with the city of Liman in the Donetsk region. In these cities, many graves were found. In those days, Ukraine completely destroyed the myth of the invincible Second Army in the world. That's when the Kerch Bridge exploded, and just 2 days later, Russia launched the first massive missile strike on energy facilities and civilians. Kherson was liberated in the last month of that autumn. At the beginning of summer, Russia blew up the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station, flooding 80 settlements. In February 2024, Alexander Syrskyi became the commander-in-chief. In August, the Kursk operation began, which allowed the creation of a buffer zone. In October, information emerged that Putin was deploying soldiers from North Korea to Ukraine. Now, Ukraine is the foundation of security on the continent. Supporting Ukraine contributes to the security of Europe and the world. Against Ukraine is fighting the axis of evil, which seeks to destroy the global security system. And now, the final stretch of the struggle that has been ongoing since 2014. But our resistance is as strong as on the first day.
I would now like to invite the First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Environment and Spatial Planning of the Republic of North Macedonia, Mr. Izet Mejiti, to take the floor.
Thank you. Nderuara Presidente Gordana Seljanovska, nderuar ambasadore Ukrainës Larisa Dir, të nderuar ambasador I Bashkimit Evropian, Shteteve të Bashkuara të Amerikës, Shteteve mike të Maqedonisë dhe Ukrainës, I nderuar Ministri I Çështjeve Evropiane Orhan Murtezani, zëvendës Ministri Dimitrovski, të nderuar të pranishëm. Në mëngjesin e ftoftë të 24 shkurtit 2022, bota u zgjua me alarmin që njoftonte Ukraina ishte në luftë. Forcat armatosura ruse kishin nisur agresionin ushtarak ndaj shoqeve ukrainase. Atë mëngjes shkurti, bota do të ndryshonte. Në sipërfaqe dolën ndasi të reja globale, bota e lirë, vendet perëndimore u radhiten në mbështetje të Ukrainës, ndërsa pikpyetja e madhe nëse jemi në prag të luftës së dytë botërore nr. 2 me një ndarje të thellë ndërmjet Perëndimit dhe Rusisë, vazhdon të jetë aktuale edhe sot. Efektet e kësaj lufte, qofshin ato politike, ekonomike, ushtarake, kriza energjetike apo edhe zgjerimi I NATO-s që duhet sikur u kthye në urgjencë për Europën dhe Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës, bota I ndjen fuqishëm edhe sot. Maqedonia e Veriut është rreshtuar krah për krah me aleatët e saj perëndimor për të mbrojtur të drejtën e Ukrainës, për të ekzistuar, për të marrë vendime autonome për veten si shtet sovran dhe për të kundërshtuar përpjekjet ruse për të penguar këtë të drejtë duke u sulmuar ushtarakisht e duke anektuar këtë pjesë të rëndësishme të territorit Ukrainës për të bashkangjitur Rusisë. Sot, në 3 vjetorin e fillimit të luftimeve në Ukrainë, jemi dëshmitar të një nisme të re për të rikthyer paqen në Ukrainë. Sigurisht, ne I përshëndesim këto përpjekje për t'i dhënë fund luftës, sepse bota ka parë mjaft vuajtje, populli I Ukrainës ka përjetuar mjaft dhimbje, humbje në jetë, pronë e pasuri. Ne nuk mund të dimë si do të përfundojnë këto përpjekje dhe kur do të përfundojnë, por gjithsesi se mirëpresim nismat gjithëpërfshirëse për të vendosur paqen në Europë dhe paqen në botë. Ju faleminderit dhe urime për suksesin e filmit I cili po prezantohet sot.
Thank you, First Deputy Prime Minister. I would now like to invite the Ambassador of Ukraine to the Republic of North Macedonia, Her Excellency Larisa Dir, to take the floor.
Почитувана председателка на Република Северна Македония, госпожа Гордана Селяновска-Давкова. Почитувані членові на владата на Република Северна Македонія, почитувані пратеніці, почитувані представниці на дипломатський откор, почитуван владико, почитувані представниці на медиумите. Доброе утро. Ви много благодарам за вашето присутство и за вашата поддръжка на Украина. I would like to thank you for coming to support Ukraine in its struggle and in its heroic resistance, which lasts 3 years due to Russian military aggression against Ukraine. I would like to express my special gratitude to EU Ambassador Mr. Rokas for his assistance in organizing this event, as well as to his team for their understanding and friendly support. Thank you very much. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine started 3 years ago on February 24th, 2022. 8 years of low-intensity Russian aggression preceded this moment. The war started in 2014 when Russia occupied the Ukrainian Crimea Peninsula and invaded eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk. Between 2014 and 2022, Ukraine and Russia held approximately 200 rounds of peace talks in various formats and agreed on 20 ceasefires. However, in February 2022, Russia shattered the peace process by starting a full-scale war against Ukraine. Distorting facts, rewriting history, spreading disinformation and using blackmail have been the modus operandi of Moscow for centuries. The Kremlin's policy has a distorting effect of a warped mirror. However, the reality is as follows. Russia, a nuclear state, violated the UN Charter and international law by launching military aggression against Ukraine, a country that voluntarily gave up its nuclear weapons. More than 20% of Ukraine's territory is currently under Russian occupation, and 30% of our territory is heavily mined. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians have been killed by Russian forces. Tens of thousands of prisoners of war and civilians are being held in prisons and so-called filtration camps, where they are subjected to torture and abuse. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian children have been abducted and deported to Russia, which constitutes a crime under the Genocide Convention. Hundreds of Ukrainian cities and villages have been completely destroyed, scorched, erased from existence, with only their names remaining on the map. Ukraine has a database, the register, tragically one that continues to grow, of tens of thousands of missing persons. Between 5 and 8 million Ukrainians have been forced to flee their homeland since February 24, 2022. Russia has repeatedly attacked Ukrainians' nuclear power plants, including the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Every single day, lots of regions of Ukraine come under heavy shelling and bombing. A peace in the Kremlin with unilateral concessions will not work, as this strategy has repeatedly proven to be a failure. As long as the aggressor believes that he can win and impose his will on the world, there is no possibility of achieving the peace. Only the defeat of Russia or the realization of the futility of aggression will open the way to truly constructive negotiations. Ukraine is committed to ensuring that the efforts of Ukraine itself, the United States, the United Kingdom, and EU countries are aimed at just end of Russia's war against Ukraine. To end this war with a lasting and just peace, no mistakes must be made, and guarantees should be developed by those who can truly provide them. Throughout these 3 difficult years, Ukraine has received vital assistance from the United States, from the United Kingdom, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Italy, Spain, the Czech Republic, France, Croatia, Slovenia, Slovakia, Romania, Greece, Japan, and South Korea, and many other countries. We are especially grateful to North Macedonia, which has provided heavy weapons, ammunition, mines, as well as a humanitarian support for Ukrainians who found shelter in North Macedonia after the beginning of Russia's war against Ukraine. Ukraine also highly appreciated the participation of the President of North Macedonia, Her Excellency Gordana Silyanovska-Davkova, in the first Global Peace Summit in Switzerland. This war must end with the achievement of a just and lasting peace. A peace without justice will only lead to another war. Russia must be held accountable as the state that launched this military aggression. Ukraine will never legally recognize the Ukrainian territories occupied by Russia. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, stated, "Together with the United States and Europe, peace can be more secure, and this is our goal. And most importantly, this should be not only our goal, but a shared one with our partners." Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for your support. Please continue support. And it's impossible to end this war without Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Dir. Now I would like to invite the Ambassador of the European Union to the Republic of North Macedonia, His Excellency Michalis Rokas, to take the stage, please.
Your Excellency, Madam President, dear Larissa, dear Deputy Prime Minister, ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps, it's with a great degree of humility that I am standing today in front of you to mark this very sad anniversary, a day that will stay forever in infamy. I recall 3 years ago, I was in another country, and by serendipity, we had invited the Ukrainian ambassador to participate, to tell us it was a volatile situation. And the Russian aggressor was pretending that there would be no attack. and he had to be called out of the meeting to get the news with a time difference. I was in Asia. And then he came back a few minutes later and he announced the breaking news. For several minutes, there was absolute silence, morbid silence, and disbelief. But the Ukrainian ambassador said, "You don't need to be sad. We are not afraid. We need your help, and we will prevail. We are Ukrainians." And this I will never forget. And indeed, this is what has been happening since. We all know that the Russian armed forces that tried to attack straight in the beginning, Hostomel, the airport area, and take down Kiev and the leadership. And since then, Ukrainians have demonstrated unparalleled bravery, resolve, and resilience. And today, as we speak, the EU leadership and many EU leaders, the Canadian Prime Minister, are in Kiev, not only to reiterate the European Union's strong and unwavering support to Ukraine, not about to say how much more funds we are going to contribute to the 136 billion we have already given, but to be part of a long and justice and peace which will respect the sovereignty of Ukraine and will put and give all the necessary security guarantees. Because we should not forget that in this war there is one aggressor. In this war there is a brutal aggressor that has imperialist and revisionist intentions. There is one victim, is Ukraine, and Ukraine today, like every day since 3 years, is fighting for the values of Europe and for Europe. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Ambassador Rokas. I will now like to invite the Ambassador of the United Kingdom to the Republic of North Macedonia, His Excellency Matthew Lawson.
Good morning, Your Excellency Ambassador Dear, Your Excellency President Selena Davkova, First Deputy Prime Minister, fellow ambassadors, friends and allies. They say the best speeches are often made in threes, so let me give you 3 important things on this important day. 3 years ago, European security changed for the worse. Russia's invasion of a sovereign European country, Ukraine, was an unprovoked and unjustified violation of the UN Charter committed by a permanent member of the Security Council. 3 weeks. That was the confident assumption the Russians had about how long Ukraine could hold out. 3 years on, Kiev remains a free city. President Zelensky and his people have shown what real freedom and democracy looks like. The UK, alongside our international partners, stands united with Ukraine. That is why we have committed to delivering 3 billion in military aid to Ukraine every year for as long as necessary. Our support is unwavering: military, financial, diplomatic and political. And this includes backing calls for a special tribunal for the crime of aggression, ensuring that those responsible for this illegal war are held accountable. Together with our allies, we have imposed the largest and most severe package of sanctions ever levied against Russia. Without these measures, Russia would have been over $400 billion more, funds that would have prolonged this illegal war for years to come. These sanctions, together with our steadfast military support, are vital in ensuring Ukraine's victory. But we must not stop there. Ukraine must not only win this war, but secure a future that is free, prosperous, and ambitious. That is why the United Kingdom continues to stand with Ukraine, providing 12.8 billion in total military, economic, and humanitarian aid since the start of the full-scale invasion. My Prime Minister has spoken with President Zelensky, reaffirming our unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty and its democratically elected leadership. The United Kingdom is clear: Ukraine's voice must be at the heart of any peace negotiations. It is for Ukraine to determine when and how it engages in discussions. We are at a crucial juncture. Russia faces a choice. If Mr. Putin is serious about peace, he must demonstrate it by respecting Ukraine's sovereignty, upholding the UN Charter, and rejecting the ambitions of imperial conquest. The UK and our allies are ready to listen, but we will not be fooled. To the people of Ukraine, we say, we stand with you. Your courage inspires the world, inspires the United Kingdom. Your fight is our fight. For as long as it takes, we will stand by your side. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Ambassador Lawson. Now I will invite His Excellency Monsignor Dr. Kirill Stoyanov to take the stage.
Почитувана председателке на Македонија, Ваша Екселенцијо, почитувана амбасадорке на Украина, почитувани амбасадори, пратеници, министри, дами и господа, драги пријатели, браќа и сестри во Христа, ве поздравувам од моје име и од името на директорот на Македонскиот Каритас, овде присутниот отец доктор Зоран Стојанов. Денес, пред точно 3 години, со започнувањето на војната во Украина, за жал во Европа се врати војната и повторно се случува трагедија во европското семејство на народите. За многумина, оваа војна можеби е само географска, политичка, геостратешка, но за нас, како луѓе од црквата, е духовна рана, пораз на човештвото и повторно неверство кон Бога. А како друго да ја наречеме оваа трагедија, кога има страшни страдања, кога се разрушуваат домови, а невини луѓе ги губаат своите животи, кога се убиваат човечки животи, зборовите не се доволни за да се опише ниту трагедијата, ниту болката, ниту тагата, а уште помалку може да се опише и оправда смислата да се убие некој. Но зарем смееме да ги затвориме очите пред страдањата? Зарем смееме да останеме рамнодушни на болката, која е последица на уништениот мир, кон кој копнее секое човечко битие, па и целото човештво, посебно кога ќе го загуби? И што човек би можел да посака во еден таков момент, освен мир, прекин на страдањата? Во еден од своите апели за мир, папата Фрањо вели: мирот не е само отсутност на војна, туку е плод на правдата. Нема мир без правда и нема правда без помирување. Мирот не е дар кој се добива без жртва. За мирот мора да се жртвуваме, да покажеме љубов и жртва кон сите кои страдаат, но и да молиме за оние кои водат преговори и одлучуваат за исходот на конфликтот. Лицата на оние кои страдаат ни го покажуваат лицето на Бога, лице на сите нас. Тоа е вистинската причина зошто мораме да молиме и да се залагаме за мир, не заради политички интереси, туку заради човечката душа која бара спасение. Како представник на католичката црква, а воедно и на Македонски Каритас во Македонија, во овие 3 години не само што молиме за мир, туку и активно действуваме да помогнеме на луѓето во неволја. Сметам дека Македонски Каритас, заедно со некои парохии, јасно покажаа дека христијанската љубов и милосрдието не познаваат граници ниту пречки. Каде има луѓе во неволја, таму е и црквата. Црквата секогаш се со оние кои страдаат. Мирот не секогаш зависи од политичките договори или воената моќ, туку и молитвите на верниот народ, кој може да измоли храбри и одлучни политичари, дипломати и поединци, кои со Божја помош и доверба во него се способни да преземат иницијативи за намалување на страдањата и враќање на мирот. Тоа ни го покажува искуството на црквата. Се наоѓаме во родниот град на Света Мајка Тереза. Па во оваа прилика ќе пренесам една нејзина иницијатива среде војна. Во 1982 година, за време на граѓанската војна во Либан, Бејрут беше разорнат, а голем број деца беа заробени во болница во војната зона без храна и помош. Светските лидери и армиите беа немокни да постигнат прекин на огнот. Но тогаш, мајка Тереза, обична монахиња со срце полно со љубов, реши да направи нешто неверојатно. Отиде кај водачите на двете страни и им рече: "Јас сум само една жена, но со Божја помош ќе отидам по тие деца. Дозволете ми да ги спасам." Неизината храброст ги допре срцата на војниците. Прогласија 20-часовен прекин на огнот само за да и дозволат да ги спаси децата. Со автобус во придружба на Црвениот крст и сестрите од нејзиниот ред, мајка Тереза ги извлече сите деца од болницата и ги однесе на безбедно место. Денес, нашите молитви повторно нека бидат упатени за мир, да молиме за Украина која страда, за Украина која бара праведен мир, да молиме за сите народи кои се засегнати од оваа војна, за сите војни во светот и за сите невини жртви и за оние кои се ранети, но и повредени не само телесно, туку и со своите души. Мирот Господов нека се излее во срцата на сите кои тагуваат. Завршувам со зборовите на папата Фрањо кој вели: "Војната е секогаш пораз, да молиме за мир во Украина и за мир во целиот свет." Благодарам.
Thank you, Monsignor. Now I would invite the Minister for European Affairs of the Republic of North Macedonia, Mr. Orhan Murtazani, to take the stage.
Нderuar известни министри пари и чеверис, почитувана председателка на Република Северна Македонија, dear Ambassador of Ukraine, dear Ambassadors, Excellencies, guests and friends. It is a privilege to stand here before you today on behalf of the government of Republic of North Macedonia to recognize not just a film but a testament to courage, sacrifice and unwavering spirit of the Ukrainian people. As we mark three years of defense against full-scale Russian aggression, it is even more important to reflect on the resilience and unyielding fight of Ukraine. I have not yet had the chance to watch the movie, but I have read about it and I already know it is more than just a cinema. It is a history lived and endured. It is the story of Ivan, a young man forced to trade innocence for resistance, family for duty, and fear for defiance. And in his story, we see the truth of Ukraine's fight, a nation standing unbroken against brutal aggression. Today, we celebrate this film's success, but more importantly, we honor the reality it represents. North Macedonia has stood with Ukraine from the beginning, condemning Russia's unprovoked and unjustified war, advocating for justice and offering support in every possible way, diplomatically, militarily, and humanitarianly. Our commitment remains steadfast. Ukraine's sovereignty, its independence, its rightful place in the European family must be protected, and peace must be restored. This is why films like Rock, Paper, Scissors matter, because they do what no speech, no political statement, no news report can fully achieve. They make us feel. Recently, I walked the streets of Kiev. I saw the scars of war, the empty spaces where homes once stood, the silence of places that should have been filled with laughter. But I also saw something far more powerful. I saw resilience. I saw a nation refusing to bow. I saw people who, like Ivan in this film, refused to let war define them. As I look forward to watching this film, I do so with the understanding that we should see it not just a piece of cinema, but as a message that says Ukraine will endure, that justice will come, that the story of Ivan and every Ukrainian who has had to make the same impossible choice will never be forgotten. Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, especially for giving the announcements about the film. So maybe we can speak jobs sometimes. Next, I would like to invite the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of the Republic of North Macedonia, Mr. Zoran Dimitrovski.
Почитувана председателка госпоѓа Гордана Силјановска-Давкова, почитувани представници на владата, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and dear friends. On this day, 3 years ago, the world was awakened by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. What Moscow dubbed the special military operation has turned into Europe's largest conflict since World War II. Unfortunately, a great number of civilians and soldiers have been killed, many displaced, many lost their homes, their loved ones, entire cities have been destroyed and turned into ruins. Ukrainian citizens have witnessed the ugly face of this terrible war, a war with a high price and consequences to the whole society. The advance of Russian troops across Ukrainian territory has united the world to stand by Ukraine in its fight to defend itself from the aggression. The international support mobilized for Ukraine has been also about the international rules-based order, the principles of the United Nations Charter, and the sovereign equality of all states, large and small. We condemn the Russian aggression against Ukraine, and we commend Ukraine's bravery, outstanding resistance, and endurance. Along with other allies and partners, we have stepped up our political, humanitarian, military, and financial support for Ukraine in these difficult times. In aligning with the European Union's common foreign and security policy, we have associated as well with the substantial packages of sanctions against Russia in order to hold Russia accountable for its action. But unfortunately, there are no sanctions that could return lives lost in the war. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this third anniversary since the start of the war in Ukraine remind us that a search for resolving this conflict should be intensified. Ukraine needs peace so that people can slowly restore their normal lives and engage in activities that bring back stability, growth, and prosperity to their country. The world took note of the latest diplomatic initiative announced by the new United States administration in aiming to stop the terrible war in Ukraine. We are aware that achieving sustainable and just peace needs time and a lot of efforts. For all the parties involved in any negotiations, and a good starting position is to strive towards reaching a common understanding of the highest purpose, which is not an easy task in the current circumstances. Today, we need to be even more united than ever. It is important that the process of finding a negotiated solution is inclusive, since the outcome will also have wider implications. North Macedonia stands by its commitment to support Ukraine and peace in Ukraine, and will positively act in achieving a desirable and sustainable outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Now I would like to invite the member of the Assembly of the Republic of North Macedonia, Ms. Slavianka Petrovska, to take the stage.
Почитувана председателка на Републиката, професор доктор Силјановска Давкова, почитувани амбасадори, ценети воени аташеа, драги пријатели на Украина. Трета година поред, на овој ден се сеќаваме на 24 февруари 2022 година, кога светот беше сведок на почетокот на руската инвазија врз Украина. Акт кој со ништо не беше испровоциран, ниту предизвикан од Украина. Инвазијата која започна режимот на Путин и тогаш, и денес, потврдуваат дека и во 21. век на европско тло постојат и за жал владаат диктатори. Владетели на кои јас им е поважно од ние. И затоа како демократски општества не можеме и не смееме да оставиме Украина сама. И тогаш, и денес, ќе бидам гласна во повикот дека Украина сме сите ние и дека поддршката и помошта која ја даваме мора да биде повидлива и пореална. Затоа што не смееме да заборавиме дека и тогаш и сега Украина е живиот штит на Европа од режимот на Путин. Деновиве често се поставува прашањето дали Путин победува. Не сум воен експерт, знаете. Но логиката, а и фактите велат дека Путин е веќе поразен. Она што требаше да биде 48 часовна инвазија и освојување на Киев се претвори во 3 годишен отпор, решителност, храброст и одлучност. Одлучност да победи демократијата и иднината на самостојна и независна Украина. После 3 години Путин прв седнува на преговарачкото столче и бара примирје. Тоа не е затоа што му е грижа за илјадниците загинати од двете страни, туку затоа што знае дека војната е изгубена. И затоа нашата поддршка за Украина не смее да престане. И сите ние заедно мора да останеме со Украина до крај. Затоа што денес Украина не само што се брани од агресијата, туку се бори за принципите врз кои почива мирот во Европа. Република Северна Македонија има историја на тешки политички и економски предизвици, би рекла и безбедностни. И затоа длабоко ја разбираме важноста на меѓународната солидарност и поддршка. И тоа треба да го покажеме и сега, како што го покажувавме од почетокот на агресијата. Лично јас верувам дека и сите ние ги поддржуваме сите дипломатски напори кои имаат за цел постигнување на праведен и траен мир. Мир што ќе биде во согласност со меѓународното право и волјата на украинскиот народ. Не сакам да бидам драматична, но ќе завршам со пораката дека иднината на Украина е иднина на Европа. Нашата заедничка одговорност е да обезбедиме сигурност и одржливост на одлуките кои ќе бидат донесени. Слава Украина!
Thank you, Ms. Petrovska. Now I would like to invite the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Sweden to the Republic of North Macedonia, Her Excellency Ami Larsson-Jane.
Dear Madam President, dear Deputy Prime Minister, dear ministers, colleagues, dear friends of Ukraine, dear Larissa. Support to Ukraine is the Swedish government's top foreign policy priority. We see this as a moral obligation and an indispensable investment in Europe's security, independence, and future. Sweden has therefore increased its support to Ukraine for each year of the war. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, this totals 6.3 billion euros. The government of Sweden recently also presented its 18th military support package to Ukraine, the largest to date. Our unequivocal focus is to make Ukraine's position stronger, because the only sustainable peace is one that Ukraine achieves through strength. Peace negotiated from a position of weakness would only encourage further Russian aggression. Such a development is of great concern, especially for small countries such as Sweden and North Macedonia. The EU is crucial to securing long-term and robust support to Ukraine and to constraining Russia. The EU also plays an increasingly important role in strengthening the defense industry, military mobility, and civil preparedness in Europe. Moreover, the EU is key to imposing effective sanctions. Sweden has pushed for sanctions against Russia's shadow fleet and liquefied natural gas, and for using the extraordinary revenues generated by immobilized Russian assets to support Ukraine. This year, Sweden marks 30 years of EU membership. The EU's continued enlargement and cooperation with partners in our neighborhood are essential to our security and economy. To us, EU enlargement is a geostrategic investment in peace, democracy, security, stability, and prosperity. It is in our interest to help the candidate countries to move closer to the Union. We proudly do so, both in Ukraine and in North Macedonia, through large reform cooperation programs. Sweden's support for the candidate countries is strong, but not unconditional. Their pace of reform is decisive. A colleague who follows Ukraine's reforms closely said to me that the Ukrainians are reforming as if their lives depend on it. I would add that this is because their lives depend on it. Russia's war is also an attack on Ukraine's culture, its civilization and identity. Today, Sweden is announcing additional funding aimed at supporting Ukraine's cultural heritage through the Ukraine Institute in Sweden. To close, let us remind ourselves of the fact: in 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of a democratic and sovereign country against the UN Charter and international law. Russia's unlawful and unjustified war on Ukraine, however, began already in 2014 with the invasion and illegal annexation of Crimea. Sweden's Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson is today in Kiev, and his message is clear: no decision about Ukraine without Ukraine. No decisions about Europe without Europe. We stand together to defend the international legal order and maintain peace and stability in our region, for the sake of Ukraine, for the sake of our own countries, and in defense of a rules-based world order that serves the purpose of peace and prosperity for all. Dear Larissa, Sweden will continue to provide political, humanitarian, military and financial support to Ukraine for as long as it takes. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I would like to invite the Ambassador of the Czech Republic to the Republic of North Macedonia, His Excellency Jaroslav Ludva, to take the stage.
Dear Madam President, dear Larissa, First Deputy Prime Minister, dear friends. Today we remember a very sad day. 3 years of Russian conducted a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I would like to say in the beginning, just the same as in Sweden, in the Czech Republic, for the 3 years, Ukraine has been the top priority by far in any aspects of our foreign policy. We have been home for more than 500,000 Ukrainian refugees, and even though we don't have a common border and Kiev is far from Prague by distance, we are very close, very, very close by heart. Like I said, Russia has been conducting a full-scale invasion of Ukraine for 3 years now. However, Russian aggression has been ongoing for over 10 years, since 2014, when the Russian army occupied Crimea and triggered an armed conflict in eastern Ukraine. Moscow's goal is not only to defeat and break Ukraine, but also to weaken NATO and the EU as much as possible, and additionally, to destabilize the West and the security architecture across Europe. Ukraine is defending itself against this aggression and is striving to restore its territorial integrity. We fully support this. Ukrainians have nowhere to retreat, as their survival as a nation and a state is at stake. That is why they are determined to continue defending, with our help, their own state and future. Russia itself has no interest in any peace negotiations. Its aim is capitulation and the destruction of Ukraine as a sovereign state. We should be aware of it all the time. The parameters of a possible peace differ diametrically in the Russian perception on one side and the European-Ukrainian understanding on the other side. Although it may seem that Russia is successful in the battlefield, it faces growing problems. Economic and social instability will continue to deepen. In 2025, inflation, interest rates, debt levels will rise, and the ruble will depreciate. Russia will be increasingly forced to choose between two fundamental priorities. Either it will maintain spending on social policies, or it will fund its military industry. Both options cannot be pursued simultaneously. Russia is economically and socially weak, even though it tries to confuse us and create the illusion of military strength. On the front line, it spares neither people nor equipment, just to achieve minimal territorial gains. This expansionist way of conducting war is unsustainable. Ukraine has fewer resources, but its determination is much, much greater. If Ukraine endures, Russia will be defeated, and just a peace may be achieved. Defeating Russia would also mean an increase in our own security. Russia's defeat would send a warning signal to the other aggressive authoritarian regimes that the path of violence and trampling of international law leads nowhere. If we were to ease our support for Ukraine, we would allow Russia time to regain strength. Russia will not stop in Ukraine. The West has invested unprecedented resources in supporting Ukraine. It is not possible to question these investments now and forego future peace dividends. In peace negotiations, we must primarily pressure Russia, not Ukraine. And Russia must be held accountable for its war crimes. Slava Ukraine!
Thank you, Ambassador Ludva. I would now like to invite the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to the Republic of North Macedonia, Her Excellency Petro Drexler, to address us.
Madam President, First Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers, dear Larissa, fellow ambassadors, friends and allies. 24th of February is indeed one of those days that all of us remember. We all still recall where we were at the moment when we learned about the full-fledged invasion against Ukraine. We still remember how it felt. 24th of February has not only brought unimaginable suffering to the people of Ukraine, it has also shaken Europe. It has changed the face of the world, and it has ever since been a priority of our countries to restore peace in Ukraine. Today, we are once again at an existential crossroad for the peace and the security of Europe. And for us in Germany, it is crystal clear that there can be no sustainable peace, no lasting peace, without Ukraine and Ukrainians being at the heart of any solution. The respect for the sovereignty and the integrity of Ukraine must be at the heart of everything that is, of all our deliberations. In Germany, the commitment is as strong today as it was yesterday to stand with Ukraine. We will remain with you as long as it takes. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Ambassador Drexler. Now I would like to invite the Ambassador of the Slovak Republic to the Republic of North Macedonia, His Excellency Henrik Markuš, to address the stage.
Distinguished representatives of North Macedonia, distinguished representatives of Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, friends of Ukraine. The title of today's event, the 3 years of defense against the full-scale Russian aggression, is most appropriate. Unfortunately, the situation has reached a stage where we must even defend the very terminology used to describe this appalling tragedy. Something that just a few years ago would have been inconceivable. We once believed that the modern times would bring peace and positive developments for all nations in line with the principles of the United Nations Charter. To emphasize the significance of this defense, allow me to add a few words to today's title. The defense, absolutely just. The heroic Ukrainian defense, not only of Ukraine, but of all of Europe. The defense of democracy itself, as recently and rightly reiterated by the representatives of Germany and France, who reminded us who the real dictator is and who holds the democratic legitimacy. The defense of which the people of Ukraine are paying the highest price. It is striking and deeply troubling that some actors ignore these realities as attempts are made to distort or downplay the barbaric and monstrous destruction inflicted upon our friends who are merely defending their freedom, identity, and territorial integrity. At the beginning of this year, I spoke about the necessity of returning to normality as a prerequisite for restoring peace and upholding the principles of the UN Charter. Yet we all watch with great concerns as developments unfold that not only threaten Ukrainians' fully legitimate rights, but also risk long-term negative consequences for European and global security, peace, and stability. On a more positive note, the mobilization of Europe is encouraging. However, it must intensify to counteract these negative trends. Our goals, as outlined in Paris, are clear. The immediate restoration of a just and fair peace for Ukraine, ensuring full respect of all its rights, including its key role in any negotiations regarding its future, robust, steadfast, and unlimited security guarantees for Ukraine, respect for the security of all European countries. I sincerely hope that the next time we gather, without delay, it will be to discuss Ukraine's post-aggression reconstruction, and a future agenda will be filled only with positive prospects. Slava Ukraini, Gerojem Slava.
Thank you, Ambassador Markus. Now I would like to invite the Head of Office, Ambassador at Large of Lithuania to the Republic of North Macedonia, Her Excellency Vilma Dambrauskienė.
Your Excellency, Madam President of the Republic of North Macedonia, Gordana Siljanovska-Davkova, honorable members of the Assembly and the Government, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Ukraine, dear Larissa, fellow ambassadors, dear colleagues, friends of Ukraine. 3 years ago, Russia launched an unprovoked genocidal war against Ukraine, seeking to rewrite history through force, to erase a sovereign nation and break its spirit. But Ukraine stood, it fought, and today, despite immense suffering, it continues to resist with unbreakable courage. Every day, Ukrainians defend what matters most: family, dignity, freedom, and culture. Russia's started bloody war of aggression is not just about Ukraine. It is about all of us who believe in freedom, democracy, and dignity. It is about the values that define us as nations and people. We know our values, and because we believe in them, we must defend them. Defending these values requires united and decisive actions that match the scale of aggression we face. The ultimate goal must remain unchanged, not just to end the war, but to stop the aggression and to ensure long-lasting peace. Lithuania has been clear: the strongest, cheapest, and most practical guarantee of Ukraine's security would be NATO membership. We are, and we will insist on irreversibility of this path. Time and life are the most precious things we have. Yet, we are losing both to Russia's brutality. There cannot be negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine, just as there can be no decisions about Europe without Europe. Ukraine's independence, territorial integrity, and sovereign right to determine its own destiny must be safeguarded without compromise. North Macedonia has consistently demonstrated its commitment to European values and democracy. Your path to sovereignty, like ours, has been guided by the same principles Ukraine fights for today: self-determination and the right to shape your own future. History has taught us painful lessons about the cost of inaction, hesitation, and allowing aggressors to believe they can act with impunity. We must learn from these failures, not dwell on them. Weakness fuels suppression, but strength, real, collective, united strength, brings just peace. But to be strong, we must act, because discussions about what we cannot do not strengthen us at all. Yet we can do and must do more. This is not just about Ukraine's survival. It is about the security of Europe, the credibility of international law, and the future of all free nations. Victory will not come from cautious half measures. We have not yet exhausted the potential of sanctions. Sanctions on Russia and its accomplices must continue to target Russia's key sources of revenue to hinder Russia's economy. And 300 billion euros in frozen Russian assets, while we debate where to find funding for new assistance packages for Ukraine, the answer is already in front of us. I am proud that Lithuania has supported Ukraine in every possible way and will continue to do so, always, before, now, and forever, whatever victory takes. I call on each and every one of us, leaders, citizens, nations, who cherish freedom and justice, to stay united and take action. Every action matters, even supporting voice. Let us ensure that Ukraine gets everything it needs to achieve victory, because Ukraine's victory is Europe's victory. It's the world's victory. It is the victory of freedom over those who seek to erase it. Because if we fail Ukraine, we fail ourselves, and we betray the future of a just world. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Ambassador Dombrovskirny. Now I would like to invite the Editor-in-Chief of the media platform of Civil NGO President, Mr. Jabir Derala, to take the stage.
Your Excellencies, Your Excellency President, representatives of the government and the Parliament, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends. The cold mind of history will remember these times as an era of shameless lies, immense tragedy, and boundless evil, countered by unparalleled heroism and an unbreakable love for freedom and peace. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine's Prosecutor General has registered over 156,000 war crimes cases, including torture and executions of civilians, among them children, women, and the elderly, execution of POWs, bombings of civilian targets, including hospitals, schools, and kindergartens, sexual violence, use of chemical weapons, and many other terrible crimes. The world has seen shocking images of horrible violence, often recorded by Russian aggressors themselves. One of the most horrendous crimes is indeed the abduction of 20,000 children, now subjected to Russification in the so-called re-education camps. 3 years ago, Ukraine, led by an artist and intellectual, President Zelensky, stood at the crossroads of history. The president was offered an escape as bombs rained down on his country. He responded with words that will echo through time forever. The fight is here. I need ammunition, not a ride. Ukraine said no. No to brutal and bloodthirsty aggression. No to the machinery of lies and propaganda. No to the forces of tyranny that sought to erase a sovereign nation from the map. More importantly, Ukraine said yes. Yes to freedom, yes to dignity, yes to the right of its people to determine their own destiny. I am deeply humbled and grateful for the sacrifices of the Ukrainian nation and will always honor their courage and heroism. They're not only defending their country, they are defending democracy and freedom for all of us. The front lines of this war stretch far beyond the trenches and the skies besieged by missiles and drones. They are in our cities, our institutions, our media, and our societies, where the battle against disinformation and propaganda rages on. Russia's war is fought not only with missiles and tanks, but with lies, manipulation, and fear, amplified by its far-right allies in Europe, the region, and across the world. As someone who has dedicated years to fighting this war on the front lines of truth, I know this battle is not fought alone. I wear the Order of Merit awarded to me by President Zelensky with deep respect and gratitude, not as a personal honor, but as a tribute to my colleagues and fellows and those who stand against a far greater, far stronger foe. I implore you to remember the journalists, activists, and truth seekers who expose the deception, counter the propaganda, and refuse to let falsehoods shape our future. They are the unseen warriors of this fight. More than 100 of our colleagues have been arrested, killed, or are missing in the 3 years of Russian aggression. One of them Vilen Temeryanov, a journalist from Crimea, whose case I follow and advocate for, has been in Russian captivity since August 2022. He has endured torture, including isolation, psychological abuse, electroshocks, narcotics, and other methods, all part of a horrifying tactic known as punitive psychiatry from the Soviet Union's playbook. Today, as we mark 3 years of the full-scale resistance, let us honor Ukraine's struggle not only with words, but with unwavering solidarity and concrete support, for as long as it takes for them and for us to liberate Ukraine and establish a just and lasting peace. Because Ukraine's fight is our fight. Their resilience is our lesson. Their victory will be a victory for all who refuse to bow to tyranny. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Mr. Derala. Now I would like to invite the journalist, war reporter in idmedia.mk, Ms. Kristina Atovska, to take the stage.
Добар ден, почитувана председателка, почитувани амбасадори, драги украинци, денеска ќе зборувам, ќе ви се обратам на македонски. За мене оваа војна е многу повеќе од само бројки, од само политички изјави. Јас живеев со украинците 3 месеци на самиот почеток на војната, влегов таму на 20-тиот ден, во оние моменти кога може би беше најжестоко за справување, по кој што украинците се уште се справуваа со шокот. Така што останав таму 3 месеци и моето искуство навистина е премногу големо и оно што имам да го кажам за Украина е премногу обемно за да го собере на едно мало ливче. Меѓутоа, сепак нема да ви одземам толку време и ќе се задржам на неколку клучни работи. Како што кажав, 3 месеци поминав со украинците, заедно со нив спиев во цивилни згради, под бомби, спиев во подземни засолништа, во ровови. Бев до првата линија на огнот, бев во Киев, кога Киев се уште беше опколен. Потоа бев во Буча, првиот ден откако русите се повлекоа од ова место и ги видов сите оние десетици тела расфрлани по улиците. Во тој момент, прво не знаев што да чувствувам, но она што ми помина низ глава е дека ова е најлошото нешто што можам да го видам овде во војната. Меѓутоа тоа не е така. После Киев, после Буча, заминав за Харков, а оттаму и до регионот Изум, до првите линии на огнот и до сите оние села многу близко до првите линии на огнот, каде што луѓето со денови немаат храна, вода, основни услови за живот и кои што живеат со тенкови во својот двор и со робови во својот двор. Затоа јас како новинар сакам да ја пренесам на цивилна порака и цивилна страна, затоа што, како што кажав, луѓето не се само бројки и мислам дека во овие 3 години светот многу повеќе зборува за политиката, за бројките, за кој е во право, кој не, меѓутоа сите ние како да ја подзабораваме она цивилна страна, забораваме како се чувствуваат тие луѓе, што значи тоа за нив, забораваме колку милиони украдени животи донесе оваа војна. И денеска кога ние овде зборуваме за 3 години од почетокот на војната и одбележуваме 3 години, морам да ви кажам дека во Украина, на некои места, 1 секунда изгледа како цела вечност. Затоа за огромен број украинци денеска не се одбележуваат само 3 години од почетокот на војната, туку повторно одбележуваат една цела вечност и огромен број, како што кажав, украдени животи. Сите претходни говорници ја зборуваа храброста на украинците, јас тоа го посведочив и со свој очи и тоа можам да кажам дека колку е поопасно местото или градот, толку е поголема храброста и желбата да се истрае во оваа војна, така повторно ќе го спомнам градот Харков, кој што преживувањето во тој град 24 часа е буквално лотарија. Буквално лотарија, таму нема каде да се спасите, да се скриете. Ако ви е пишано, тоа е тоа, ако не, ќе преживеете. И токму таму луѓето се најхрабри, најистрајни и она што од кое што јас сум навистина воодушевена и кое што го пренесов, се обидов да го пренесам во еден документарен филм и за да остане да сведочи е токму таа храброст на украинците и онаа желба да не дозволат никој да ги избрка од својот дом без оглед на се. Милиони луѓе се уште свесно одбираат да живеат под бомби 24 часа само затоа што се истрајни во тоа, во идејата да не дозволат да бидат избркани од место кое што го сметаат за свој дом. Затоа како новинар би сакала малку повеќе да обрнеме внимание на човечките животи, на цивилниот аспект, на тоа што се соочуваат украинците веќе 3 години, кои за нив и воопшто не изгледаат 3 години. Тоа што денеска зборуваме за 3 години од почетокот на војната, а не 3 години од крајот на војната, јас лично го сметам како еден колективен неуспех на сите нас, буквално на сите нас во целиот свет, и како професионалци, и како луѓе, и како политички структури. Зборуваме за војна на европско тло, на еден цивилизиран стар континент во 21. век. Нешто што никој од нас наистина не можеше да предпостави дека ќе бидеме вратени во едни такви времиња. Затоа повторно ќе пренесам пораката дека повеќе треба да обрнеме внимание на човековото страдање, на тоа што всушност значи оваа војна, која што повторно ќе кажам, воопшто не е само бројка. Ви благодарам. Слава на Украина.
Thank you, Ms. Satovska. Now I would like to invite the professor of the St. Cyril and Methodius University in Skopje, Mr. Ratko Duev.
Почитувана председателке, почитувани министри, заменици, Ваша екселенција госпожа Лариса Дир, Ваши екселенции, дами и господа, историјата научи дека секогаш кога одбиваме да го браниме наследството на цивилизацијата, колку е да е несовршена, кога одбиваме да се бориме против тиранијата и агресијата, последиците за човештво се дури полоши од војната. Денес сме собрани, верувам и на многу други места ширум светот, на денот кој означува 3 години од нападот на една независна европска држава Украина. Териториите на Македонија и Украина, иако с размер многу поголема Украина, биле мостови на цивилизациите, из кои минале многу племења, народи и се менувале многу владетели. Делиме слична судбина. За жал, Европа ги напушти начелата на Обединетите нации, воспоставени по Втората светска војна. Меѓународното право остана само како предмет за изучување на студенти, а тоа ги разбуди духовите од минатото. Војната е продолжување на политиката со други средства. Таа е зло, насилниците не војуваат за правата на малцинствата, за слобода. Нивната цел е грабање на територија и природни ресурси, нивно едно богатење, без да водат сметка за обичните луѓе, а и соствениот народ. Постојано зборував дека Европската Унија мора да ги заегне механизмите на солидарност и посилна соработка на секој план, зачествување на институциите на Европската Унија, бидејќи во спротивно земјите ги очекува поголема катастрофа. Секоја навраќање во 19. век е длабоко бришање на идејата за Европска Унија, која заради војните во минатиот век исчезна од геополитичката сцена на новиот век. Визијата на Виктор Иго за Соединетите европски држави, наспроти Соединетите американски држави, е единствен спас. Дали европските земји извлекува поуки од минатото? Не. Падот на Украина би значил и пад на Европа. Украина 3 години ја води последната битка за стариот континент. Дали Европа е единствена во поддршката на Украина? Не. Денес соочуваме со преговори за пирање на војната без вклучување на Европа, на чие тло се води таа војна. Светот е опасно место не поради оние што прават зло, туку поради оние кои гледат и не прават ништо, се зборовите на Алберт Ајнштајн. Што ќе се случеше, секогаш се прашувам, доколку храбриот украински народ во овие 3 години не успеа да се одбрани. Наред ќе дојде и други европски земји, ќе се осоколеше агресорот. За жал, булдожер дипломатијата за прифаќање на моменталната војна состојба, како предлог за решавање на војната на Украина, ќе значи само приведен мир. Го видовме тоа со војните по распадот на Југославија. Секоја промена на границите е вовед во нови идни војни за ресурси и територии. Насилството е последно заслониште на неспособните. Се надевам дека конечно способните луѓе во европските земји ќе се освестат и ќе му застанат на патот на насилството на неспособните. И ова прилика би сакал да им одам слава на сите оние јадници луѓе кои ги изгубија своите дома и своите семејства, на сите оние кои што ги изгубија украинци животите за одбрана на својата земја и на сите оние кои што и ден денеска стојат на линиите на фронтот. Слава на Украина!
Thank you, Professor Duev. And now I would like to invite the Defense Attaché of Ukraine to the Republic of North Macedonia, Colonel Serhii Katsuba, to take the stage.
Почитувана госпожо председателка, почитувани представници на влада на Северна Македонија, Изет Меджити, Орхан Муртазани, Зоран Димитровски, почитувани пратеници, почитувана госпожа Славенка Петровска, dear ambassadors and representatives of the diplomatic corps, dear friends. 3 years ago, Russia started a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Hundreds of children, thousands of civilians were killed. Hundreds of cities were destroyed. This is the Russian world, a bloody, bloody Russian world. But the heroic struggle of the Ukrainian people and the help of our allies have broken Putin's plans for Ukraine and Europe. Thank you to everyone who supports Ukraine. Thank you very much to North Macedonia. We will never forget. There is a lot of talk about peace now, but the reality is different, unfortunately. Russia continues to attack Ukraine every day and every night with drones, missiles, and other weapons. My kids now in Ukraine, and every night they hear and see the peace Putin brings on his drones. Yes, Ukrainians want peace more than everyone in the world. But we don't want the peace that can very quickly turn into a new and bigger war. We don't want our children to go to war again. At this time, it is important to remember that weakness will provoke even greater aggression from Russia, and unfortunately, not only against my country. These are difficult times, but Ukrainians will continue to fight for our lives, our independence, and of course, for a just peace. And we ask you to continue to support our state and our people. For example, now we know we need simple anti-air guns, anti-air systems to destroy drones. If somebody has old one, please send to us, we can fix and use it to protect our kids and children in peaceful cities. United we stand, divided we fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel Katsuba.